Amid growing threats from Russia, Europe is starting to respond from a position of strength. NATO has announced a major operation to protect key infrastructure in the Baltic Sea, involving up to 10 ships. As reported by the Finnish publication IL, NATO naval forces will begin patrolling the Baltic Sea at the end of this week. The operation will last until April and will focus on protecting underwater energy and data cables. Important infrastructure will be protected by both NATO ships and vessels provided by allies. Particular attention is being paid to the Gulf of Finland, where joint efforts by Finnish and Estonian navies continue. Patrolling in this area will be a key step in preventing possible Russian sabotage with the support of China. An example of rapid response was Finland, which in December detained the Russian tanker Eagle S after damaging the Estlink 2 submarine cable linking the Finnish and Estonian energy systems. Finnish authorities identified the suspicious vessel within a few hours, stormed it, and took control of it. The actions of the Finnish security forces have received widespread support in Europe, demonstrating the need for a robust and coordinated response to hybrid threats. Finnish authorities actively communicate their actions, publishing daily reports and holding press conferences. Finland's actions and NATO's initiative signal Europe's move to actively protect its infrastructure from hybrid threats emanating from Russia. European countries must ensure operational interaction between all levels of security. Without evidence of the enemy's intention, it is difficult but necessary to assume worst-case scenarios in order to effectively counter sabotage operations. Openly discussing threats helps reduce the fear and disorientation that the enemy seeks to cause. Experts stress the importance of coordinating the efforts of European states with NATO. Joint actions could become a key element in countering Russia's hybrid attacks. Earlier, media reported that another cable between Lithuania and Sweden was damaged. Telia's technical director, Andrius Semeskevicius, said that the communications cable between Lithuania and Sweden was damaged. Due to the emergency, Telia's ability to transmit internet to Lithuania dropped by 30%. The internet is supplied to the country via 3 cables, one of which was damaged. The connection was restored the same day after all the faults were circumvented. The chairman of the Council of Reserves of the Ground Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Ivan Timochko, told the 24 channel that the hand of Russia is felt in the statements that try to downplay the significance of the operation in the Kursk region. Timochko noted that the intensification of attacks by the armed forces of Ukraine in the Kursk region is either a continuation of the operation that began in the summer or a new round of it. The Ukrainian Defense Forces in the Kursk region manages to tie down a 70,000-strong group of Russians, and even more, not just tied down, but also destroy enemy troops and enemy equipment. The Kursk region issue is very painful for Putin and for the Russians. The attention of their war correspondents, bloggers who have not yet been crushed or imprisoned, is riveted specifically on the Kursk region. Of course, they react to any changes in the constancy of their troops. They do not panic, but they spread information that is unpleasant for them. In any case, the Kursk region is the territory of Russia, and all losses in terms of civilians, infrastructure, which could have occurred on the territory of Ukraine, occur on the territory of Russia, noted the chairman of the Council of Reservists of the Ground Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. According to him, Russian bombs are flying over Russian territory, Russian houses are burning, Russians are becoming migrants, fleeing from the combat zone. It is very good that intense fighting is taking place in the Kursk region. Under other conditions, one could say that the significance of the operation is small because Russians are not involved in the fighting. In reality, as a result of the fighting, the enemy has suffered significant losses here. For Putin, this issue is becoming very acute, very painful. They will make every effort to counter the armed forces of Ukraine. If the intensification of hostilities there took place and Russian intelligence on its territory once again failed to monitor, failed to assess the situation, did not see the movement of our additional forces, the concentration of strike directions. This indicates that they have big problems in organizing counteraction to the armed forces of Ukraine on Russian territory, noted Timochko. Tank attacks on the front are becoming increasingly suicidal for the Russians and bring zero results due to the proliferation of attack drones. At the same time, writes Forbes analyst David Axe, this does not mean that Russian troops cannot advance. They are throwing infantry into the fight, supported by artillery and drones, slowly moving forward. As Michael Kaufman, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment in Washington, explains, the Russians are leaning toward a new infantry-first doctrine, partly to reduce equipment losses, but also because of the general inability to penetrate prepared defenses covered by ubiquitous reconnaissance and attack drones, since dispersed infantry is harder to defeat than long lines of vehicles. At the same time, some Russian commanders continue to send their tanks and infantry fighting vehicles into senseless banzai attacks. But, as Russian bloggers complain, they gain nothing, lose everything, and provide cheerful content for the Ukrainian armed forces. At the same time, the Russians' transition to infantry attacks forces the Ukrainians to repel these attacks with their own infantry. At the same time, in conditions of a shortage of people, in order to replenish losses and simultaneously form new units, the Ukrainian military began sending specialists from their auxiliary units to the front lines. Ironically, poaching drone operators to augment infantry units, a band-aid approach to countering Russian infantry attacks, risks weakening the very forces that forced the Russians to attack primarily on foot. If Ukrainian commanders send too many drone operators to the front lines to fight like infantry, they may inadvertently make Russian vehicles safer to attack again, the Forbes analyst notes. Since the beginning of the year alone, the Russian army has captured 8 villages south of the city of Pokrovsk, and according to Bild military observer Julian Robka, in just a few weeks, the war could spread to the Dnipropetrovsk region. Russian troops are 7 kilometers away from it. As military expert Ivan Stupak noted, Russian occupiers may attempt to carry out a large encirclement of Ukrainian defenders in the Donetsk region. We are talking about territories that are bordered on one side by Pokrovsk and on the other by Chasov Yar.